at work on a construction site, and I pulled it up on my phone. And the guy that I worked for, he was like, "Well, what's wrong?" I said, first thing I did was call my wife. This has been just as much a journey for her as me. So it was a good day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. And today our guest is someone who's just passed the Georgia Bar Exam. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This has got to be an exciting time for you.
Yes, sir, it is.
Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be taking the Georgia Bar?
Well, I'm retired military. I'm kind of a non-traditional student, I guess. I did 20 years in the military and did some other things when I got out. And in 2011, I decided, my wife and I started this journey. And I went back to school, used a GI Bill. When that ran out, continued on and decided I wanted to go to law school. I live in an underserved community as far as attorneys. When I open up my office, I'll be the only full-time attorney in town. I feel like we need an attorney here, a full-time attorney who does nothing but concentrates on our area.
Right. So you're in a rural part of Georgia.
Yeah. We have one stoplight.
All right. One stoplight lawyer. All right. So now, but getting through the Georgia Bar Exam was not an easy process for you, was it?
No, it wasn't. When I graduated from law school, I did not take the July bar following because I wanted to take some time to reconnect with my family because law school was fairly intensive. And I made the mistake of not concentrating on the bar exam as soon as I needed to. I took the February bar, didn't pass. And that following July, I took it again and missed by 7 points. And then this final time, the third time I took it, I did nothing but for 5 months prior to taking the bar. I used celebration and actually just focused all my energy on taking the bar and was finally successful.
Let's talk a little bit about that 5-month period and what your studies looked like. How many hours a week would you say you were studying during that period?
I was studying a minimum of 30 hours, and it progressively got more till I was doing 40 to probably close to 50 a week.
Wow, that's a lot of work. Did you set up a daily work schedule to make that happen?
I did. This final time, I did a daily work schedule. I would study for 4 hours in the morning. I'd take a couple hours, have lunch with my wife, and then 4 hours in the evening, and then more hours later on.
And you followed the syllabus that we gave you, so you had the order of assignments in front of you, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. And there was reading, and there were video and audio lectures, and then there was question practice. Would you say that any one of those three was more important for you as you were studying, or were they all about the same?
I would say that the essay writing was the most important for me. I didn't have a problem with the multiple choice as much as I did with the essay writing, and it was just a matter of writing and writing again and just consistently forcing myself to write a bunch of essays.
And you were using the fact law application approach, the writing approach that we teach?
I was, and it worked out really well for me. It was difficult at first coming from law school and those methods and then going to the FLA, but the FLA really worked for me.
And what did you like about it? Why did it work well for you, in your opinion?
To me, it was a logical progression. I'm going to put my facts down first, then the law, and then apply the law to those facts. And for the way that I was thinking, it worked really well for me as opposed to an IRAC type formula.
And did you type your essays on the exam, or did you handwrite?
This last time I typed.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because that wasn't what you did originally, was it? And why did you make that change? You're laughing at me. You knew that was coming.
Well, when I wrote it the first time and I filled out the blue book, I couldn't make changes. I couldn't go back. I couldn't cut and paste. I couldn't make the answer more clear to the people who were grading it. And it tended to me, it looked choppy. And I knew it was choppy, but when you're in a time crunch, you can't go back and erase and write again. and I put more words down. And I'm not a verbose kind of person. I don't do a lot of flowery type stuff. So I tend to be really concise, and I probably don't write as many words as a lot of your students do. In law school, I was told I was spare with my writing, and I was very concise. I don't know if that was an insult or
yeah, backhand
criticism. It did well for me because I could cut and paste and put it where I felt like it needed to be.
And I think it makes a big difference to be a handwriter. I think puts you at a disadvantage for the reasons you've described, and being able to type certainly gives your writing a more professional look. It makes it more organized. It's easier for you to manipulate it. Would you suggest to people that they type rather than handwrite now?
Absolutely. And I follow the Christopher Columbus method of typing. I hunt for it and I land on it. And I was still putting out work, and I would have handwriting.
I think that's really valuable insight, because I get this question a lot from students, and I know particularly from non-traditional or older students who may not have been as comfortable with typing through their college experience, how many ever decades ago it was, it's hard to get used to that. So that was certainly a difference for you. And I think one of the great things about your story, Paul, is that you have this discipline that you were willing to work. I mean, the military really gives you that discipline, doesn't it? To just sort of say, here's the task and I'm going to go ahead and do it. Did you find yourself using that kind of background to get through this bar study process?
Absolutely. I finally kicked myself in the tail and said, you haven't taken it seriously enough. You haven't followed everything that you should have followed. And this last time I felt like it's time to just buckle down and do this. I really don't want to go back again. I'm not a big fan of Atlanta.
You had signed up for our basic coaching course, so we weren't working one-on-one with you. And I get a question a lot from people about, is it enough to pass the bar without the mentoring and the coaching? Can you talk a little bit about why you made that decision to take the basic course and stay with that, and how it worked?
Absolutely. I took the basic course probably because I didn't take the bar seriously enough. I mean, to be honest, I actually thought, well, I can go in there and I can knock this out and be done with it. And I was wrong. But the basic course gave me everything that I needed personally to do it. It's just I didn't give everything that I needed to do it the first couple of times. I felt like the basic course was sufficient. And I probably would have done better if I had some of the mentoring stuff, but I just chose not to do that at that point. But the basic course for me worked really well.
Good.
Once I followed.
So what was your mindset like going back to the exam before the February test now, this last time? You've taken the exam a couple times, not been successful. You've worked really hard leading up to this. What's going through your mind as you come into this test?
The first thing that runs through my mind is, have I done enough? And I was confident, and I knew I was doing everything that I needed to do, but there's always in the back of your mind, is that enough? And it turned out to be. But I know that when I came out of the exam each day, or at each point, lunch and all that, I felt a lot more confident than I had been feeling. And I did take your advice, and I dressed up, and I probably stood out pretty well from all the people in pajamas.
Let's talk about that. Not everybody will know what we're talking about here. One of the things I suggest to people is that when they go to take the bar exam, they dress like they're going to court, because that is the life you're going to be leading. And of course, when you're a little bit older and you're dressed up, they probably thought you were a proctor, didn't they?
That or an attorney, just the attorney's portion of the test on the first day anyway.
It kind of changes your demeanor, doesn't it, a little bit? I mean, I assume when you're putting on your dress unis, it feels a little different than your camo. So it's an interesting approach, and not terribly uncomfortable to do that for 2 days, right?
No, it wasn't bad. Just as comfortable to me as just as comfortable as wearing jeans. So
there you go. So it's a little extra tip, folks. Type and dress up for the bar exam. Taking the bar in Georgia is an interesting experience, isn't it? In terms of the size and the number of people and everything else. Do you want to say anything about that?
It's intimidating when you walk in the room, for sure. Because there's hundreds of desks. I think that there was minimum 500 people in the room when I took it in February. A lot more than that when I took it in July. They do a good job of guiding you. There's boards outside that say what row you're in and all that. But when you walk in that room for the first time, it's like, wow, there's a lot of people in here.
Definitely, and lots of rules and character limits for typing and word counts and so on. So there's a lot going on there. You had to travel to get to the exam, right?
Right.
What was the hotel like? Did you stay in a hotel or did you stay with family or friends? Or
I did. I'm actually blessed. My daughter works for Marriott, so I got to stay in a hotel for a very cut rate. So we stayed in a hotel, and I stayed at a hotel, intentionally stayed away from the test site because I really didn't want to deal with, especially I'm older, a bunch of 20-somethings running up and down the hallways in panic mode. I stayed, it was probably 4 to 5 miles away, but I think I was the only bar test taker in the hotel that I
saw. So life was normal there, right, as compared to abnormal. And did your wife go with you when you went for the exam?
She did.
And I think that's really a smart idea. I was just going to say, did she just hang out by the pool or during the day and wait for you?
No, she's a professional shopper. So.
All right, so it was a good trip. All right, good. So now one of the interesting things about the Georgia bar is that they are generally among the last states to release their results. So what was that period of waiting like? You've been through this before without success. Did you feel differently waiting this time, or was it just more of the same?
I was more confident, but one thing that I did do is a friend of mine asked me to help him out on a job site. So I worked every day, and that really helped me a lot. It was construction work. It was completely physical, and it was a lot easier for me to have my mind focused on something other than waiting on results for those 3 months.
I think that's really a great idea to keep yourself busy. On the day that results are released, tell me what that was like and what it was like how you found out.
I was at work on a construction site, and I pulled it up on my phone. And the guy that I worked for, he was like, well, what's wrong? I said, first thing I did was call my wife. This has been just as much a journey for her as me. I'm sorry. It was a good day.
Yeah. What was your wife's reaction?
Well, she's going to work for me in my office. So her first reaction was practical. Oh, my God, we got to get an office. We got to do all this stuff. And we're still doing a whole bunch of stuff. So she was extremely excited, but she got really practical really quick.
I wanted to talk about your wife for just a minute because I think sometimes we forget that we're the bar taker, but our families really are going through the process with us, aren't they? I mean, they have to endure all the missed events and the time away and the stress and pressure. And it seems to me that you and your wife have been good partners through this process. Can you talk a little bit about what she's meant to you in the process?
She's been through it just as much as I have. I'll be in here studying and try not to take it out of this room. This is where I studied. I try not to take it out of this room to make her pay the price, but she's still paying. She's dealing with the time that we don't get to go spend with our grandchildren and stuff like that. It's just as much a trial for her, and dealing with my shortness of temper at times. If I do something and I'm not successful, if I take a practice MBE and don't do as well as I feel like I should have and take it out of the room like I shouldn't. She has done, she's dealt with more and she has done more, making sure that I have my coffee and the meals are on time and just keeping me straight and telling me, you got this, focus, encouraging.
Well, I think you're really blessed to have a partner in life and in this process. And I think those of us that go through this recognize the value of having family that's supportive. So I'm glad she could share in that and we'll be able to share with you as you go forward. We have a lot of people that come to us to take the bar who've been away for a long time or they're non-traditional students like you were. And we have folks that certainly have not been successful previously. What would you tell people who are sort of starting back where your journey was a couple of years ago about the process now, looking back at it?
Number one thing that I learned after being not successful and not successful is follow the syllabus, do what's, being told to you because it works. And you just have to have the self-discipline to actually do what you're being instructed to do each time. And I failed to do that. And then when I did it and kicked myself and said, let's go, let's do this, let's follow it to the letter, it worked. It worked well for me.
Right.
And I saw the difference from the first two times to the last time when I was successful.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm so pleased for you, and congratulations. It's an incredible accomplishment. I'm sure your community will be well served to have a full-time lawyer finally in the community, and I'm excited to see what you do. I think it's a great thing. Sometimes I hear people that say, well, I'm too old to go back to law school, or I'm too old to become a member of the bar. That's not true, is it?
No, it's not true at all. And I hope to be successful, and I think I will be. And I appreciate you saying that.
Well, it's really an honor and a pleasure for us. We thank you for your service to the country. We thank you for the service that you're going to provide as a member of the bar. And so we're just thrilled for you. And I appreciate so much that you would share your story with our audience, because I know somewhere out there's somebody that's listening and watching going, wait a minute, that's my story. that's where I am.
Yes.
And it's easy sometimes, I think, to feel like we should give up. But you just refuse to give up. And I think that that's one of the really great things, the takeaways, right, for somebody else is don't give up.
And I agree with that. Don't give up. And if you fail the first time, you got to look back and honestly evaluate what you did wrong and correct those mistakes and continue on.
Well, that's great. Well, Paul, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate your time. Look forward to your success. So please stay in touch with us. And to our audience, we appreciate you checking in with us. And we'll see you again next time on our next episode. Thanks, everybody.